Alright, welcome back. As you can see, I'm on generator detail here today. I've been working on this 3500 watt generator, and a few months ago I replaced the recoil cord, and I'll link to that video at the end of this one. Today we're working on this 4000 watt generator, which is running really rough, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start it up, let it warm up. I'll shoot some video of how it's running currently, then we'll take the carburetor apart, clean it up, see if it makes a difference, alright? Let me go ahead and get this one started and warm it up. Before you get started, you're going to want to make sure that your fuel valve is in the off position. And as a matter of fact, it's going to be best if you actually turn it off and let the engine run until it dies out. That's going to reduce the amount of fuel that we're going to have in our carburetor float bowl. Okay, it just reduces the mess a little bit. Okay. Now on that subject, I'm going to mention that before you take the carburetor apart, if your small engine has an inline fuel filter, you may want to try changing that out first. Okay. And likewise, this fuel valve and many others have screens in them, and you could also have a clogged screen, because what this engine is doing when I open the choke all the way is it's hunting for fuel. That surging that we were seeing is the engine basically running out of fuel. The governor is backing off on the throttle, so to speak, and then it catches up, and then it does it again. It repeats. So basically, we're not getting enough fuel to the carburetor, or the carburetor is not allowing enough fuel to the engine, okay? So, but this video is about cleaning the carburetor, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to start by removing this air cleaner here. And keep in mind that this process is going to be the same or similar on a lot of other small engines also. This happens to be a Briggs and Stratton. And I'm using an 8mm on these bolts here. You could use a flat screwdriver as well. And it would be a nice time to change your air cleaner if needed, as well as your spark plug. And I can link to those part numbers at the bottom of this video. I've already had this one apart, so I know the air cleaner is not bad. Although I do have a replacement spark plug, because I've been working on these. Are the exact same parts for both generators. Okay. Now I need a Phillips screwdriver here, right here, and here. What I'm going to do is zoom in. You don't need to see this fuel valve anymore. You know it's off. Let me reposition the camera here. Alright, so I'm going to remove this 8mm bolt here. And these two Phillips screws right here and right here. Okay, this air cleaner assembly is basically loose, but we need to pull the basically a little tab on this choke handle here. It just pulls right off, okay? That's going to allow the air cleaner assembly to slide off. And also our carburetor is now loose, but you don't want to pull it off yet, because we need to disconnect the governor. And there's a spring on there as well that's pretty delicate. So what I'll do is I'll get these out, and then we'll shift the camera around so we can see that other side. Okay, I'm just going to hold the carburetor in place here. There it is, okay? We also have to disconnect this fuel supply hose. Alright, so I didn't grab needle hose, I just grabbed regular pliers here because it's going to work best. Just going to take that clip and slide it up the supply hose. I do have a catch pan underneath here as well. And if you notice that the hose is real cracked and brittle, good time to replace that as well. Okay, let me switch around to the governor assembly. Okay, so this is the part that we were looking at when the engine was running, and this governor assembly is what sort of maintains the engine RPMs. Okay, so there's a little arm, and then there's a spring that you don't want to pull apart also. So it's right here. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but I'll try to get a better shot when we assemble it. Okay, so the carburetor is free, and these are really basic. There are no external jets that can be adjusted, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, there is a throttle adjustment here, which is basically spring-loaded screw so it doesn't vibrate loose, and it just basically allows the low idle adjustment. Okay, let's go ahead and take this thing apart. Alright, so as I mentioned, this carburetor is pretty basic. What we're going to do is we're going to remove the float bowl by just removing this bolt in the bottom here. I'm just using an adjustable wrench for this. It shouldn't be wound in too awful tight. Now you're going to want to keep track of all the gaskets. There's a little gasket on the bottom of this. There's a gasket like this on each end of the carburetor itself. And there is an O-ring right in here. And I like to pull that out before I start spraying it with carburetor cleaner, because I've had carburetor cleaner interact, or these O-rings rather, react poorly with the carburetor cleaner and they elongate. Okay, now here's the problem: is if this is real dry and brittle, you may end up tearing this when you pull it out. So it's a catch-22. Ideally, you'd want to buy one of these before you start. I don't have one. Okay, and here's the other gasket we're going to want to keep track of, and it's on there pretty good, so I'm not going to mess with it. All right, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try to get all of this on camera. There's a pin here on this float, and this one's pretty free. I'm just going to go ahead and pull that out. Put everything in my catch pan here. Okay, and then you've got a little needle valve on the bottom of this float. You see that? Okay, sometimes this needs to be replaced. That just, on this particular one, there's really no adjustment. It just slides in like this. Okay, now it should have a springiness to it as well, so that should not be solid. Should have a little bit of play there, like that. All right, just gonna put that, because I'm gonna spray all this down with carburetor clean. I'm putting it all in my catch pan here, including the float bowl. As a matter of fact, this doesn't look too awful dirty. What I'm gonna do is try to get my O-ring out here delicately. Alright, success. All in one piece. Okay, so what I like to do is remove everything that I can. So I'm going to remove this jet. Now, it may not be necessary because you could obviously hit this with a carburetor cleaner without issue. But I like to remove this jet and actually look through it and make sure I can see the light. And I can't. I can't see light through that jet right now. So what we're going to do is get the carburetor cleaner and just blast this all out. Make sure your O-ring is out of there. Again, you may not have an issue, but I've had issues in the past with it. Let me grab some carburetor cleaner. Alright, you may want safety glasses on for this, because if you shoot it into a port, it may come out in an unexpected area, because that's how these carburetors work. Okay, and I'm also going to hit it with compressed air after I've hit it with carburetor cleaner. And right here, you want to get it right down inside all of those. Any kind of a port, you want to go right down inside of it. Now, sometimes those ports are closed off, so it may not go anywhere. Okay, and on the bottom, get all of these little areas. And we're going to take our jet here. Oop, I think it just let go right there. My guess would be this jet was clogged. I don't know if you can see light through it or not, but I can now. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to hit it with compressed air as well, okay? Because my theory is the carburetor cleaner sort of loosens up all the gunk, and then the compressed air is going to blow it all out of there. All right. What I've got here is just a little blowgun attachment, needle valve on it. Getting all these same ports. Now sometimes Now this carburetor wasn't really that bad, but sometimes you need to let these soak as well. And I've actually had times when I've had to do it a couple of times. Okay, I'm going to hit the this little jet with the air as well. And there's definitely air blowing through that. So, all right, once it's blown out and clean, I don't want to put it back in my pan because I've got a bunch of debris and whatnot in there. Okay, and I'm just going to take a rag and wipe down this needle valve here. Sometimes these are like rubber and they'll develop a ridge, and the symptom that you'll see when that happens a lot of times is that your fuel won't shut off in the float bowl, and sometimes if you have an overflow tube, you'll just have fuel continuously running out of your overflow. Sometimes that's because this needle valve isn't floating up or compressing up into the fuel supply enough. Okay, that's not the case on this one. Our problem is we're not getting enough fuel. Okay, and I'm just going to wipe everything down. Now this needle valve just slides into a little groove right here, and it hangs. Well, we'll hang it down, but just like that. Whoops, if I can get it in the camera here. Okay, so it looks like that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put it back together. And if you need to tip this back a little bit while you get your float in place, that's okay. Got our pin right here. That pin just pops in here. Just like that. All right, now we have our jet. I'm just going to thread that in by hand, then I'll hit it with a screwdriver. That way you know it's not cross-threaded. Just get it in there as far as you can. Alright, now I'm going to move this out of the way because I don't want to get any of that carburetor cleaner on my O-ring. Alright, next we're going to replace our float bowl and gasket. I'm going to wipe out the inside of the float bowl, make sure there's no carburetor cleaner around the edge here. Okay, and then we're going to take our gasket, and again, ideally if you had a new one, that'd be great. You can use the old one, just be cautious with it. And you may need to kind of hold it in place on all the sides and then gently lower the float bowl down onto it so that it doesn't pop out of place. Okay, I can see that it is where we need it to be. Okay, don't forget you have a small gasket on this little bolt here, bottom of the float bowl. Okay. Now I should have mentioned too that you want to clean these mating surfaces here. You know, I don't think it's necessary to replace these gaskets unless they're bad, but I'm going to clean these off and wipe these down as well. Okay, this one's kind of stuck to it, so I'm not too worried about it, but I'll clean the surface of this gasket. All right, let me shift the camera around and we'll get this thing installed. All right, I wanted to get a close-up of this idle arm in this little spring that I was talking about when we removed the carburetor. Okay, those are going to go in the same hole right here, and you can actually see the wear, so you know that's where it goes. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I just wanted to show you that. Okay, so I'm going to do the spring first, then we'll drop this arm in just like that. Okay, the gasket is already on the inside of this carburetor. We do have to put the gasket on the outside here. Okay, what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to put this fuel line on just to kind of hold the carburetor in place. And just like that. Okay. All right, next we're going to want to take our gasket, line it up with our air cleaner, and there's a specific direction. There's a cutout here on the top, there's a cutout here on the top, so we know it goes like that. And then we'll take our screws and we'll use those to hold the gasket in place. Okay, just like that. Turn it around, we'll line those screws up. Make sure if you did have to mess with your inward gasket, or the gasket that mates the carburetor to the engine, that has not slipped out of place. And we'll just get one threaded here. Now we'll try to find the other one. You may have to sort of move it up and down like this until you find the hole, so to speak. Okay, before I tighten everything down, I'm going to get this 8mm bolt in. That way you know everything's lined up correctly if you... Okay. Alright, we have our choke knob here. Just slides on. And check for proper operation of that choke. Make sure we have, haven't botched anything in that respect. Okay, we have our new air cleaner. Might as well put a new one in. I have one, even though the other one was not bad. We have a pre-filter here. And then the air cleaner cover. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this put back together. I'm going to try the same test. I'm going to start the generator, let it warm up, and see if it makes a difference. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Thanks for watching. Give me that thumbs up if you did find it helpful, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this type of stuff. I do ADV repair, automobiles, home improvement, appliance repair, you name it. I like to fix everything myself. Okay, let me get this down off my stand, go over, get it started up, and hope it works. All right, let's check it out.